there is this organization called InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. And it's one of those campus ministries. You see them on a lot of colleges everywhere. And there was this woman named Alice Conlin. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. But Conlin had worked for InterVarsity for years, for decades even, more than 20 years. And specifically, she had been in her position as a spiritual director at a particular campus for like 7 years. And during that time, so she's a deeply committed Christian. I mean, she's fully invested in this organization. She abides by their rules. She's the type of employee, if you were a Christian ministry, she's the type of person you'd want to have there. And it turned out her personal life, wasn't all that great. At some point, she had to get a divorce from her husband. I don't know why they got it, and it doesn't matter at all, but they got a divorce. And, InterVarsity understands that people go through divorces, but they have specific rules about how you're supposed to respond if you have a divorce. And for example, did you go through some sort of reconciliation process with your husband? Did you see a counselor? Things like that, or a Christian counselor anyway. And she followed all those rules. She did all the steps. But they still got divorced. They couldn't reconcile for whatever reason, so she got divorced. But you would think, okay, she tried to do everything that they asked her to do. It didn't work out, and that's that. But recently, InterVarsity fired her. And they said it's because of her divorce. They fired her a while back. And Conlin is suing the company now. She's suing InterVarsity. And she's arguing that they fired her after she got a divorce and followed the steps. But there were men who were also hired by InterVarsity who had gotten divorces. They were not fired. And she thinks she was receiving unequal treatment because she was a woman. And what makes the story even worse is that InterVarsity, they didn't even work through her when they were going through this process. They told her husband, we need some details about your divorce. They told Conlin that she had to go see a counselor of her husband's choosing. It's a very patriarchal thing, this idea that, okay, yes, you're the employee here. Yes, you're the person who got divorced. But we don't really care what your side of the story was. We have to go through your husband to do to find out all this information and to see if you followed the protocol correctly. It's horrible. And here's the thing. The lawsuit was not made public yet. So all we've seen is how news sites have responded to it. And we haven't seen what the verdict is, whether InterVarsity is found guilty of, this gender mistreatment or whatever you want to call it. We haven't found out how the courts are going to respond to the story. But when I heard this story, the first thought that came through my head when I heard that it was InterVarsity is, why does that not surprise me at all? Would it surprise anybody really if this evangelical Christian organization was found to treat women in a way that is inferior to men? Would it be weird if we found out that they had women jumping through hoops that the men that were employed under them didn't have to jump through? It wouldn't surprise me one bit. And then I remembered InterVarsity, I've seen them in the news before, and it's because a couple of years ago at some college campus, there was a gay student, a gay Christian, who was a deeply committed Christian, who followed all the rules of what you would have to do if you were gay, as in, you can't consummate your relationship with anybody. He followed the rules, he said. And he wanted to become an officer of his campus InterVarsity group. And they said, no, we're not allowing you to become an officer of this organization because you're gay. And we hear so many stories about Christians who are like, no, it's totally fine if you're gay. You just can't act on your gayness. But that's not InterVarsity for you. They said, no, you're gay. There's something wrong with you. You can't even be an officer in this group because it would make us look, tolerant. And they can't have that. So here's the thing. I heard about this Conlin story, and it's it wouldn't surprise me in the least bit if I found out that InterVarsity was actually treating women in a despicable way, because that's what I've come to expect from evangelical Christian groups. I don't expect them to treat people equally or to respect their dignity or to treat them like human beings. We know they treat certain classes of people as inferior. It's kind of like that Animal Farm quote, yeah, you're all equal, but some of you are more equal than others. That's just kind of what we've come to expect. So, we haven't seen what the courts are actually going to do, but in the court of public opinion, InterVarsity looks just horrible right now. My name is Hemant Mehta. I write at friendlyatheist.com. If you'd like to leave a comment or question below, we'd love to check it out.